In 1929, the British, representing Sudan and a few other upstream countries, reached an agreement with Egypt that, in exchange for a number of smaller concessions, gave the country unconditional veto power over upstream projects that it believed would reduce the amount of water to reach them. Except, the one country that was never party to any of these agreements was Ethiopia, where most of the water originates. Ethiopia could become the largest power exporter in Africa, earning around $1 billion a year. To Ethiopians, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is a powerful force for good. In 1929, the British, representing Sudan and a few other upstream countries, reached an agreement with Egypt that, in exchange for a number of smaller concessions, gave the country unconditional veto power over upstream projects that it believed would reduce the amount of water to reach them. This was followed up in 1959 with another agreement that gave Egypt the rights to 66% of the river's flow, Sudan 22%, and the rest was considered to be lost to evaporation. Through time, these and other agreements created a system where Egypt, with the help of Sudan, was, on paper, the master of the entire river, even beyond their borders, despite their geographic position at the very end of it. Except, the one country that was never party to any of these agreements was Ethiopia, where most of the water originates. Still, Egypt has maintained that the treaties of 1929 and 1959 are binding agreements underscored by their historic use of the river, regardless of who was at the table or who represented the upstream states under colonial rule when they were signed. They believe that they have a say in water projects upstream outside their borders insofar as the river maintains the same rate of flow whence it reaches Egypt. This remained a nominal issue for most of the 20th century, but it all changed once Ethiopia had centralized enough power, political will, and money to start to reshape the Nile. The story of Ethiopian infrastructure development is most defined by just one single project: the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Located in the northwest of the country, this dam, once completed, will house the 8th largest hydroelectric power facility in the world. It will be nearly 3 times larger than the next largest on the African continent, and the reservoir behind it will be able to hold more water than the entire Blue Nile itself. It will be able to produce, in a year, nearly 16,000 gigawatt hours of electricity. With that, it could fulfill the power needs of 234 million Ethiopians. While that would be noteworthy on its own, it's even more so considering that the population of Ethiopia is only about 109 million. This project, in one fell swoop, will give the country a major power surplus. That is exciting for Ethiopia for 2 reasons. First, it should have a multiplier effect for development. Not only does building and operating the dam itself provide jobs, but if this energy can make its way to rural areas especially, it could make certain jobs, such as farming, more productive. According to the Rocky Mountain Institute, there's about $4 billion in potential economic opportunity just from electrifying small rural farms and making their processes more efficient, which is the equivalent of about 5% of the country's GDP. Ethiopia has one of the lowest per capita power consumption rates in the world. The average American consumes as much power as 186 Ethiopians, and increasing that can and will improve quality of life and increase economic growth. In addition to that, though, having more power than they need means that Ethiopia can become an energy exporter. The country plans to sell power to neighboring Sudan, which is also severely energy-starved, and eventually Egypt, Djibouti, Uganda, and Tanzania too. All in all, according to the World Bank, Ethiopia could become the largest power exporter in Africa, earning around $1 billion a year. For Ethiopia and Ethiopians, this project is a physical manifestation of the country's stunning, inspiring rise, and, uniquely, it's truly their dam. Unlike most large infrastructure projects in the region, this one was largely self-funded by taxes and bonds that everyday Ethiopians bought. To Ethiopians, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is a powerful force for good. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam can benefit Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, such as through managing the flow to prevent floods, reduce the impact of droughts, and increase productivity of all countries' dams, but only if they work together. There are really only two futures with this river. Either Ethiopia and Egypt come to cooperate and then turn the Nile into an economic engine for the entire region, or they don't and fall further into a conflict which will hold them both back. This entire region could have a bright future, but to get on the path towards that, they need to focus on the Nile as a tool for unification rather than division. They need to ignore the political relics of the region's colonial past and forge their own future based on the realities of today. Once they do so, the Nile could not only maintain its status as one of the most legendary waterways in the world, but it could regain its position as one of the most economically influential ones, just as it was many millennia ago.